Welcome to another unboxing by theplayersaid.com. I'm Grant. Today I'm unbagging, so this isn't an unboxing video, but I'm unbagging a polybag game from Tiny Battle Publishing titled Red Horde 1920. This game is designed by Brian Train, and here you can see the cover. It's an operational level combat in the height of the Polish-Soviet War. This game covers the invasion of Poland by communist Soviet Russia in the, actually starting in 1919, I believe the war started itself, but this game focuses on the summer of 1920, where the Soviets and Poles are fighting each other. It's an operational level game. It's once again polybag, so it's not a huge game. I think it's designed to play in a couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours. The rules aren't overly complex, but I don't know if you've ever played any Brian Train designs. I have. I own A Distant Plain, as well as Colonial Twilight. I also own the Scheldt campaign, now this game, and also own Winter Thunder, which is a look at the Battle of the Bulge during World War II. Brian's done a lot of games. I've not been able to get or play all of them, but he's a very good designer that I think always adds some neat elements into games, creates some nice chrome, and he has a different take on some wars and conflicts than other designers and even other people do. So I find him very interesting. I find his games interesting, and this is one that I've wanted. It just came out. In fact, I did an interview with Brian over this game. Just posted it this last week on our blog. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out. So once again, this is a poly game bag. You'll notice here on the back, you can see the counters, and you'll notice some of these counters popped out of the sprues in transit. This was put into a post office envelope, and they kind of, what they do is they kind of bend those when they put them in the mailboxes so that they fit. And I think that might have been why those got popped out. But that's a good sign, I think. Anytime that counters come out easily from the sprues, that's a positive thing. Mainly because they're not going to rip or tear, because they're difficult to get out of the the sprues. So here's the rule book. It is glossy paper, very good and thick, so it'll stand up to a lot of use and abuse as you play it. Not an overly thick rule book. I'll show you here. There are 14 pages. I think that's another hallmark of Brian Train games. They generally are pretty concise, and the rules are pretty understandable and easy to get through. So there you have 14 pages of rules, and you can see they're not real dense. There's a lot of color examples. Here's a good example of a color example of being in and out of supply. They're nice looking counters, nice looking presentation, and I definitely want to read this and try to get this to the table soon. But once again, this game covers the invasion by Soviet Russia of Poland after World War I. So in between World War I and World War II. Should be an interesting topic. This is an chit draw. To randomize the operations, you're going to draw chits out of a cup. I enjoy games like that. It puts some uncertainty into a game, keeps you on your toes, and makes you really focused on what's going to happen. So there's the rules. And then here's the two personalities that you're actually playing as. Joseph, and I'm going to butcher these names. I'm absolutely going to butcher them. Joseph Pilsudski is the leader of the Polish troops. And then Tukhachevsky is the leader of the Soviet troops. So those are kind of your leader personalities. So there's the rule book to Red Horde. Like I said, nice looking rule book. It looks like it will be fairly easy and understandable. Next thing we'll take a look at is some of the player aid. Looks like there's maybe one player aid card. I'm trying to get these out of this bag without bending them. Looks like there's a couple player aid cards. Let me go ahead and try to get... I always try to be careful with these games. It's one thing I don't like about polybag games is they're so tight in those bags. I just wish they'd give me a bag that's just a little bigger so that I'm not tearing the game up trying to get it in and out. But here are a couple of player aids. They're double-sided. This obviously has terrain effects and the different modifiers, effect on combat, etc. Nice card thickness, good printing, clean. Actually, I can smell the ink still. This is really freshly printed. But there's the terrain effects chart. Here's an expanded sequence of play so that you can follow and understand how to play the game. Always very useful. A lot of these war games, as their complexity increases, if you don't have something like a good player aid with a sequence of play, it's going to be very hard to play them. Also has a setup chart here at the bottom. Tells you what units are located where. So that will be very useful to get in, play a game, and get started. Here is says it's the reinforcement and replacement charts. So here you're gonna see where your units are gonna come in and what rounds. Here's a look at some of those unit types. We'll look at counters here in a moment, but you can see there's divisions and brigades mostly. There is infantry, cavalry, and militia, and army HQs as well. And then there's also assets, air assets, artillery, and armor. So it'll be kind of cool, very colorful looking game. And one of the things, kind of a piece of chrome in this game that I think is kind of cool, and you'll notice it there, the Konarmia. I'm saying it wrong, Konarmia. It is a Cossack cavalry regiment that was known to be very, very fierce in those times. I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think that's kind of a cool element. And then the final player aid chart, obviously the CRT. It is odds based. You can see the furthest left here. It is 1 to 3 or 3. Yeah, 3. This is 5 to 1. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I haven't necessarily read all the rules, but there's a standard, and then there's one for shock troops for more elite troops. Different modifiers, and then here it shows column shifts for different things. Combat results key, so you can see all the, as obviously in these war games, there's different letters and numbers on these CRTs. BBX is escalating bloodbath. I really think that's a cool moniker for that. The attacker must remove or reduce a unit or units with a total printed AF at least equal to the DF. So there are extreme odds. Attacks at less than 1 to 3 are not allowed. So if you're under 1 to 3, you can't attack. So some different elements that I have to study the CRT a little better to understand what it's trying to do. But obviously you're doing more losses and reductions as you go further on the column on the right, and the better your rolls and your modified rolls are. So there's the CRT and the player aids. Let's go ahead and pull out the map. It's a paper map, which is fine with me. I'm okay with paper maps as long as they're done well. And this is actually, I think, a very attractive map for what it is. It's not huge. Let's go ahead and kind of lay that out to show you. Really like that name there in the bottom, Red Horde. That's really nice. But a nice looking map. I like the use of the reds and the browns. The terrain is fairly standard. These hexes are good size. Let me go ahead and grab a counter out and I dropped one. So basically the counters are going to fill up an entire hex. So it's going to get a little tight as you start playing the game. But there's not a whole lot of counters in this game, and the map isn't huge, so it's not going to be really dense, which I think is a good thing. You can see on the left here, you have a morale track. You're going to track the morale of different units. There's also some adjustments based on what happened in combat or who they're fighting with. So there's a lot of interesting elements there. You can say here is Warsaw on the left side of the map in Poland, and then over here on the east is Kiev and Russia as they come together there. So kind of a neat looking map. I think it'll work very well. Let's go ahead and look at the counters. It is only one sheet, so not a lot of counters. I think that probably equates to about 160. I'd have to check the rules, but man, these are falling out, which is good. Once again, I hate counters that you have to rip out of the sprues and they end up tearing or fraying so badly. But these are nice looking counters. Here's some of the Russian units. Here's some of their assets, artillery, some administrative counters, disrupts, etc. See, those counters just fell right out in my hand. These appear to mostly be single-step units, so there's not necessarily reductions. They're going to be eliminated. I'll need to clip those, make them look nice and tidy. And then here's the Polish forces on the left. You can see here's some more armor, artillery, and air assets shown there. There's also some trains in the game. So lots of neat looking counters there. I like the counters. They're very simple. They are very simplified counters. They've just got the movement, defense, and attack values there on the bottom. They show their size, and then they use the NATO symbols for the type. So very cool counters, very solid. And look at that. They just basically are falling out of that sprue. And I think that's a good thing. So that's a look at Red Horde 1920, designed by Brian Train and from Tiny Battle Publishing. Definitely am interested in this war game. Have not necessarily gamed any games on this period or this topic, so this should be very interesting. A lot of our war games are focused on World War II, some modern warfare, and then we've done Civil War games and some ancients as well. But looking forward to this one. I think this is going to be an interesting one. As I said, I did an interview with Brian on this game. It posted about a week or 10 days ago. If you're interested in that, you can get a really in-depth look at the game, his thoughts on why he designed certain elements the way that they are, which I always think is very cool. If I can understand the reasoning behind design choices in a game, it makes me feel that I understand the game concepts better. And if I can understand the game concepts better, it's going to be a better play experience. And it's also going to be a more thematic and immersive experience for me. I know Alexander and I, when we play these war games, it isn't just about rolling dice and throwing stacks of cardboard at each other. I really want to understand the history of the battles, what made them turn out the way they did, the advantages and disadvantages both that each side had, and how that affected the outcome of that combat or struggle. So looking forward to playing this. I'm starting to get quite a collection of what I call polybag games. I think I now have about 7. I think prior to these, I had been more focused on boxed games, but boxed games, frankly, take up a lot of space. And I actually have a couple box games that have no more counters, maps, or aids than this game does. So this will take up probably 1/5 of the space that those box games do on my shelf, and still will offer a very good gaming experience. So eventually we'll get around to playing this one. We'll do a video review and then probably a written review or some action point post explaining some of the rules. So if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and like it. If you like our channel, go ahead and subscribe. And also, if you want to check out more detailed content about various war games and other tabletop games and RPGs, go ahead and check out theplayersaid.com. I think you'll be pleased with what you see. So thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.